So here's the output from at the end of our previous video. So you can see here that's the default. So then here your output will change to the pound sign. Then continue, you can see the last one we have the dollar sign. So to talk about that again, here because we have too many lines, let me change back to the default, just 10 and 1. So like earlier we said, you can just without any argument using the default value. But sometimes, for example, if you just want to have 1, 5, and in one line, then display pound sign. But here you cannot just do like this. You cannot just say here I want to replace the first variable, the second one I want to keep the same, then the third one I want to have pound sign. If you only pass in 2 arguments, so then compiler only using the first one to replace the first argument, second one to replace the second argument. And then here you will see they will just interpret the pound sign you gave them to change to the ASCII value. So that's why you see when I run the program, it's so many lines. That's because they will translate your pound sign actually is this the second argument. So then you will see here the last one, you see you want to change to the pound sign, but they didn't do that. They're still using the default argument. So if you really want to have that pound sign, but you want to keep 1, but want to keep the second input, second argument still 1, you need to give them the value. Okay, so that's why you see here, then we will run. Then that's what you want. Or you want to have 5 in one line, then that's a pound sign. Okay, so that's the default argument. And be careful how you can skip the default argument or not. Then you can go back to see your PowerPoint file. I want you to read this one. Actually, this one will already show you the example. Yeah, so then one thing, right, I need to remind you this one. So we say you can set the default argument for sum of all. But here, if you want to only set some of the value have default argument, they need to start from the last argument. For example, here we have the first one, no default argument, but the rest of that have the argument. Then you feel like, oh, I just want to have the second one have the default value. Then you do like this. But actually this one is error. If we want to skip some argument without default value, they only can be at the beginning. So that's why if you want to have second one have default value, your third one need to have default value as well. So then I will show you, you see, you can run your program. You see from the earlier our example, we have the first 2 have default arguments. But then if you the third one, the symbol, if you don't give them the default argument, then when you run the program, you will see they have error. Because the only argument you can skip, they only can start from beginning for the default value. So that's why this one, if we say we don't have this 10, then you see here, if we have this one equal to star, then this one is okay. Okay, but here you can see this one why they have the error, because you see this one doesn't have default value. So at least we need to give them this one. Okay, so then you can see here they have that. So if we want to skip the default argument, they only can do from the beginning of the argument, beginning of the parameter list. They can without the default value. So then the rest of that, they have to have default value. So that's one thing. So the second thing is we say when you call the function, you can omit your argument. But one thing is if you omit any argument, you see here, you see none1, none2, none3, because we have the default value. So that's okay to skip that. But then you cannot say, oh, I just want to have the second one using the default value. So then you do the none1, then colon, skip the none2. And do the none3. So then you will have error because you're missing value. So that's how you were using the default argument. So the next one, after the default argument, we want to introduce you more about the functions. So that's what we call the overloading functions. What is overloaded function? So actually, usually when we have the function name need to be unique. So that's how we can recognize which function you are calling. But the overloaded function mean the function actually they can have the same name. But if you have function with the same name, they need to have different parameter list. Then compiler can recognize which function you call. So on the other hand, the overloaded function, actually the definition is sometimes we have two or more than two functions. They have the same function name, but they have different parameter list. So the different parameter list can be you have different number of the parameter. You can have different data type parameter. As long as their parameter list is different, we can recognize they are different function. Even they with the same name, we call they are overloaded function. So overloaded function can be used to create function that perform the same task, but take different parameter type or different number of the parameter. So you can see they can be different type. They can be different number of parameter. So that's how the compiler can determine which version of function to call by the argument in the parameter list. So that's what we call the overloaded function. So the overloaded function is something like this. We have get dimensions. We just say, for example, the function called get dimensions, because actually our example may be not so practical, but I just want to show you the meaning for the overloaded function. You see you have get dimensions. So when you call the get dimensions, by only passing one argument, so we know you are calling this function. So then even we have two arguments, okay? But one thing is, here actually this one is not a good example. Let me remove this one, okay? But then you have the other two. So the get dimensions, you can have two arguments, but the first is two integer, the second one is two double. So that's why you see here we can know which function you are calling. So that's why here you can see this one, okay? So then when we have the three functions defined, even they are all the same name, but here according to the argument you are passing, so then we know which function to call. So for example, I have the integer length and width. I have the double data type is base and height. So then you see when I call get dimensions, I pass the int. So that's why you can see they are integers, so I know I call this function. So then you see the same thing, I call get dimensions, but I passing length and width. They are int data type. So compiler will see the arguments int data type. So they were looking for the get dimensions. They're looking for two integer data type. So the same thing you see here, we have base and height. So they are double data type. Even I still call the same function name, but I passing two double. So that's why compiler know they were using this function. So that's what we call the overloading function. Overloading function, we can distinguish them because even they have the same function name, but they may have different number of parameter, or even they have the center parameter number but with different data type. So then here you can download example 16. That's an overloading function example. You see here I have the square, but this square I have passing parameter either is int or double. So I know which function I will call. So even you can see here, my int square, I just multiply the number. The square double, I just multiply the numbers. Even the implementation is exactly the same. But sometimes because the data type is different, we need to using different function. So then when we call this function, these two functions in the main function, So then here we ask the user to enter a floating point number. So we save in the user float. Then we ask the user to enter an integer. So then you can see here when you code the input for the user. Oh, sorry, we enter the one integer and one floating number. So then after user enter one integer and one floating number, we just pass in the argument. Even you still have the same function name, but the compiler can find which function to code. So make sure you pause the video and download example 16, because I will ask you to do more. So that's here you can see we have two overloaded functions. So then you can run the program to ask user to enter one integer and one floating number. So that's why here we have one integer that's 10. So then we have the floating number is 15.6. So then you can see here, even I still call the same function name, but because the different parameter list, so that's why the compiler know which function to call. So then their return type will be also different. So that's overloaded function. So what I want you to do now is, how about you write two overloaded function? So these two overloaded function is what? I want you have they both call average. So then you have passing 3 double number, then find the average. And you can pass 3 character. So even we know the character, when they do the average, they just convert, become ASCII value. But one thing is, right, we can write these two different overloaded function. So you can see even the function body, I just add the 3 input value divided by 3. But one thing is, you see, you can just have two functions with different data type. Then compiler will know which one to looking for. So now what I want you to do is, you post the video now, then you write this program, then using the example 16 to add these two overloaded function, and change your main function to ask the user input. Okay, so you can see here what I'm doing. I just copy over the function prototype to the beginning. Then we have the function implementation here. So when we have two, so I just named this 3 double number is A, B, and C. So then we add together. Don't forget you need to do the parentheses first. Then I divide by 3. So then the same thing when we have the character. Yeah, even you see the idea is exactly the same. I just need to add together, then return the average. Even I use exactly the same variable name, the same algorithm, but the compiler will know which function to call. So then what we do here is we just ask the user to enter. So then we just here to comment out what we have originally. Okay, so then you have your user input. So we need to have the double, right? Okay, so we have the 3 double. Okay, so maybe we just say so you can see here we just ask user to give us 3 floating point value, then 3 letter. So then we call, even you see we all have average, then we give them D1, D2, D3. But D1, D2, D3 we define as double. So that's why compiler know they will code the average function with 3 double. Then here we have average and 3 character. So then they will call that function. So then when we run the program, so they ask us for the 3 double number, right? So then we just enter the 3 double number. Then the letter you can give them, yeah, anything you want, one symbol. So then you see they can give you the return value. So you will see here the average is very weird for the 3 letter is 6, right? But don't forget, they are ASCII value, or they're using the ASCII to do the calculation.